So we have our last panel of the day. It's very close to my heart. Our wonderful moderator, Adan Kedem, co-founder of Worldbusters, will lead the non-fungible panel and the exploration of how NFTs are changing ownership, identity, and brand engagement over the internet.
How are you doing? Everybody's awake? We used to start this conversation by, back in 2016, 17, it was like an empty room. And everybody is like, back in 2017 in an empty room, we used to ask, who has Bitcoin? And like two people were like, eh. So we're in a new era. We just passed a lot of issues in, with the market. And now we're trying to figure out what is the next stage or what is the next evolution. And I think this panel can supply decent answers, for the rest of us. And I think we can take it off from here. So, blockchain and crypto are not yet part of a daily conversation. It's not like we're on a mass adoption level. I agree with the person before us that it's we have a lot of issues that we need to solve. Part of them is the word blockchain and the way we use blockchain in day-to-day lives. It's all about peer-to-peer interaction and decentralization, but yeah. So before that, I want to do a quick introduction, and then we go to the questions. So introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hi, and thank you for surviving the day with us. My name is Osnat, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of Alsomine. By background, I'm a strategy consultant, work with a lot of mega brands around the world. And at Alsomine, our goal is to really uncover the best ways we can take the best bits of Web3 into the Web2 world. So we created all the tools a brand needs to switch up where it makes sense into NFTs and really improve their business case and improve their consumer experience with NFTs, and not try to create something completely new, but just make their existing business more robust.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Latzer. Thank you for staying so late. I am the co-founder and CEO of Tweed. We are a white label, self-custodial wallet and payment SDK. We work directly with companies to help them embed wallet infrastructure that can really facilitate onboarding of mainstream users in a frictionless and compliant way. And we're hiring, if anyone is interested.
Hi, everyone. Great to see everyone here. I'm Amit Peled. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer of Pink Moon Studios, formerly Cryptomon. We're a crypto gaming studio, Web3 gaming studio that was founded in May of 2021. We recently rebranded due to the fact that we basically became some sort of a tech company. And now we have two arms. One is the gaming studio arm, developing 3 games. And the second one is a tech arm, basically with everything that we've built in the Web3 space in terms of blockchain integration for Web2. Then we're basically now offering everything that we've already built to Web2 companies that want to bridge the gap to Web3.
So we have like this amazing panel of experts that are, sole survivors of the blockchain Web3 industry. I think we have a lot of good questions to ask. One of them is for everyone. And so the first one is, what is the most significant contribution Web3 technologies like blockchain to everyday life for the industry and for businesses? How do you see it already make dents and changes into the industry that we can, take this to the next level and, make a case for blockchain and Web3?
So I'll start. No problem. I think that in the first, or let's call it the second bull market of 2017, a lot of crypto companies during the ICO boom were looking at blockchain as a solution where it was basically a problem. And I might be, being the devil's advocate here, but in the crypto space in 2017, a lot of companies did not really need using blockchain. They just used blockchain because it was a hyped word, a buzzword, where data sets or regular databases were pretty much easier to accommodate. And even today, we see that a lot of the layer 2s and sometimes layer 1 are extremely congested. So think how it was 5-6 years ago. I think that in terms of how blockchain technology enables progress within the space, I think that the significant value is probably ownership, the fact that you're able to own your assets, and I think this is some of our discussion here today. And this is something that was lacking, especially in 2020, 2021, 22, with everything that is fake news regarding all the assets and content creation that you are creating online and you're not owning it. I think ownership in that sense and the value in blockchain technology comes into effect.
I can add more as on a concrete use case side. I think obviously, not obviously, but the thing that excites me most about Web3 and the technology that it brings is kind of the advancement to cross-border payments. I think it's kind of probably the most revolutionary side of what this technology can offer and what it will continue to offer as CBDCs, stablecoins become a bit more prevalent and more regulated. But if we're being a little bit more concrete, and nowadays I say because we work directly with brands, Web2 companies, on that side I would say that what excites me most and what I see companies are diving most into is actually the loyalty side, which talks a lot to the ownership and kind of aligning the brand's objective with their fan base, with their followers, which hasn't been really been able to do with the traditional, more centralized loyalty versions. So I think that is something that's very exciting. It's growing. I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout this panel more. Yeah.
So I'm completely with you on the loyalty. I would say when I talk to people who are complete blockchain noobs, I usually say there are 3 mega use cases for anything blockchain. The first one is blockchain itself as an infrastructure. So it really helps create a common base of infrastructure for multiple companies working together. And this was the first thing that was implemented in big companies, big tech, even 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Then the second is a financial use case, which is tokens and crypto. And the use case there is obviously to do with ownership and also improve trust. And it's definitely not everything should be fixed. This is like, crypto is not the Windex of finance. So you're not supposed to spray it on everything now. But in many cases, it really can help smooth out processes and remove a lot of attrition that's in the space. And the third use case is NFTs, which is the commercial commerce infrastructure. And I think with a lot of these big waves of digital transformation the industry goes through, you had 3G, you had e-commerce, you have search, you have these massive jumps, and I think blockchain is the next big digital transformation jobs across the board.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I look at it like as a peer-to-peer system. It has to be peer-to-peer, and there's a lot of conversation around, are we going to use a decentralized system and combine it with a centralized system in order to have trust and have trustlessness, have all this infrastructure together? Because the main problem with peer-to-peer is that you don't have trust between the people that are doing the peer-to-peer. That's why everything is going through centralized exchanges and not peer-to-peer, at the moment, at least, right? So it's an answer to your...
Trust is a big component of it. I agree. I think obviously if you give the example of trading on a centralized exchange or a centralized trading platform versus P2P, trust is a big one. I think the given one is the fee structure, right? Which is you can enjoy a lot of fee benefits coming from decentralization of the platform. But I think what the underlying problem here is also the UX part, that most mainstream traders, mainstream users still find the user experience of the centralized platforms way more easy to interact with, which translates into trust as well. So I think it's a bit more than just that.
Just I want to segue for a second. I know you want to add something on top?
Oh yeah, people don't want to do their own stuff. They just don't. So I feel like there's a scale. On the one end, you do your entire thing by yourself. You have to know everything about it, and you have to do your own homework big time. But you own everything, you control everything. On the other end, you know nothing, you're a sheep. I'm actually exaggerating. But then you don't need to do anything is done for you. And it's how much are you willing to give away and how much risk are you willing to take versus how much can you actually expend of your own time to dive into every little thing and not count for someone to do this for you. Hence governments, hence centralized banking. So I feel like we will never be on the far end of pure P2P because we as humans don't want to be there.
I mean, when we do cash transactions between each other, that's peer-to-peer. So basically,
unless it's a stolen bill of cash, and then you
I'm
might
just
prefer
saying,
bit.
peer-to-peer happens with cash because, you know, you meet the person, you take the thing, and then you give them cash, and that's peer-to-peer, but it's not the technological peer-to-peer. So, I mean, I see it like more of things that has to be like on a digital level and an atomic swap level without stopping the transaction in the middle. But that's like, again, but I want to segue. We came here to talk about the three-letter devil, the NFTs. You know, I'm calling it the devil because everybody gives it like this bad rep. We have amazing technology. We have amazing things we can do with it. Everybody here in this arena knows what NFT is and what it can do for identification, for supply chain, for anything. So the next question is actually to Amit. And we're going to deep dive into like NFTs as we see it today and like the evolution of NFTs. And even if we want to use the word NFT and not digital assets or any other whitewashing word like what Reddit did. Reddit sold NFTs to a bunch of people and they called it like digital goods or digital
Collectibles.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they dumped on it for like a couple of years and then all of a sudden they're selling NFTs. So there is a way to sell NFTs, but just don't call them NFTs. Call them whatever you want, but just not that word. So, segueing forward. Amit, what is the value that NFTs are bringing to the gaming space? Because you're a gaming company. What is the actual use case for NFTs in the gaming world?
Okay, I can do like a whole panel, not only a panel, but a whole day talking about this topic, so I'll try to be clear and concise. I think that in gaming, NFTs came in a way that solved a specific pain point. Myself as a gamer, seeing also the industry itself, it was pretty much all the money was funneled up to the gaming companies, to the executives, to obviously shareholders. And we're pretty much now seeing, and it takes time, obviously, and I can talk about the barriers and the reasons why it takes so long. But basically, we get to a specific point where users are understanding that ownership is important, and they are creating a lot of assets by investing their time. So it's basically you funnel your time to a specific experience. Obviously, you get the community, let's call it community vibes, and you also get the sense of accomplishment, and you're enjoying the game that you're playing. So you're obviously spending your time, but you can be spending your time on everything. You can be spending your time watching Netflix. You could be spending your time doing other things that are leisure, right? But I think that in this specific aspect, users are now understanding that they have the ability of monetizing their time by playing games. And it takes a long time because obviously gaming companies, Epic, Blizzard, all of those companies are not really interested in the concept of ownership, because that will pretty much mean that, for example, if I earned a specific asset in the game that took me a long time to get, and I don't want it anymore, and it's very valuable, I cannot transact it with another person who really wants that asset and is willing to pay a lot of money for it. Because what basically happens is the gaming company will only get the transaction fee, which is a friction of what they could be earning from this type of transaction. However, if you're only transacting with the company itself, if I want to sell the asset, I can't because the company is not buying it. However, if this person wants to buy it, it's available through loot boxes or whatever item opportunities there are in the game. So basically, gaming companies are now going into Web3, but they're not like deep diving into it because they understand that it will really help, really harm their bottom line. So I think in this sense, it will probably take a few more years until NFTs are fully immersed within gaming. In Web2 companies and Web3 companies, Web3 games are still not as enticing as Web2 games. And also, there are a lot of problems with the underlying blockchains in their transaction per second, the response time. When you're working as a gaming company and you want a lot of things to be on chain, then if you create like even milliseconds of issues or latency for the users, they have a pretty bad experience. It's very different than other things like, for example, if I'm interacting with, a website and it takes like another millisecond to load, then I'm fine with it because that's what I'm used to. But in gaming, when you have like a seamless experience that is ongoing, you can't have like connecting to blockchain right in the middle. And then once it completes, you can get the item.
Depends if you played Anthem. You have
Yes.
plenty of loading screen on Anthem.
Exactly. But
Actually, they call it a loading stream simulation.
yes. So we basically got to this point where users are expecting a seamless experience and blockchain can't supply it yet. So we're basically doing some sort of a hybrid between, let's call it Web2 gaming that is off-chain and Web3 gaming that is on-chain and trying to connect the two experiences. So you do have some Web3 experiences, but they don't harm your in-game experience.
I see. From my, actually, you're going to be next. So it's a good intuition, actually, in that one. So basically, how I look at it is, by the way, we build metaverses like Worldbusters. That's what we do. We build like 3D websites for companies and stuff like that. And usually when we want to incorporate blockchain, NFTs and all that, usually it's like a ticketing system or an identification system. I see a lot of problems as a gamer. So if you get hacked and someone takes your account, he takes your skins as well. He takes everything from you if someone hacks your account. There's a lot of problems. I mean, NFT as an identification should be like the first step, and then like it could be like an asset manager and the secondary market. It has a lot of potential, but I think the main potential is a peer-to-peer experience in the game. Because in the game, you can do peer-to-peer interactions with other gamers. I think that's the best use case for NFTs. I mean, that's like, and you need wallets for that. And for that, we're going to segue to the other question. So what are the challenges for Web2 brands that are considering implementing NFTs into their products or engagement tools? How do you see that happening these days?
Cool. So I can zoom out and start from the positive before we talk about the challenges. But I think that, in the recent bull market, there's been a lot of use cases around memorabilia that brand really engaged with, and kind of just like, dipping their toes into Web3 and trying to see how they can leverage that into a consumer experience. So it's been a lot around that. I think that since the recent down market, we've seen a lot more kind of stronger use cases, which are a lot of them are on the ticketing side, and the new revenue streams that can give companies, as well as kind of the I'd say the interoperability of it and the ability to really give some utility to those tickets after the events are concluded. And loyalty, like I've mentioned before as well, which is again fostering this community and the ability to form partnerships around loyalty in a more trusted and more efficient way than today. However, there's definitely still challenges for brands when they're coming to implement NFTs or any sort of kind of Web3 based product. And I think I can focus on like two main gaps that we've identified and we're also solving at Tweed. The main one is around user experience. Brands are appealing to, 2.0 brands are appealing to mainstream users. Mainstream users, most of them don't even know what a crypto wallet is, let alone like already have one and know how to fund it, etc. So basically, if you're asking them to participate in a loyalty program that requires them to connect a wallet, you already lost like 95% of your user base. So I think this is kind of like, this is the main issue of of adoption and of the reason that those brands are hesitating to get into the space. They need to be able to control the experience. They need to offer something that's native, that doesn't include any other brands, that doesn't send the user into any other platform. I'll repeat the word native again because it's super important for them, and it's again speaking about what you've introduced, which is kind of walking across this borderline of centralization and introducing this decentralized ability to own your assets, own your identity, own your loyalty, etc. So user experience is definitely, and kind of creating a very native and in-brand experience is something that's the biggest challenge. And then the second thing which speaks to that is once they, so in order to solve that, they really have to implement wallet solutions, like white label wallet solutions, et cetera, and that kind of brings them to the regulatory and more compliance challenge, which is, today, if you're a brand and you're implementing any sort of custody solution into your stack, and depending which assets you're allowing your users to hold, but you really actually have to adhere to some sort of financial licensing and regulation, depending on the geography, depending on the assets, et cetera. But it introduces this added risk for those brands, which is around compliance. So for them, it's really, and even the stack that they're integrating, they don't know exactly, how to qualify if it's a true, custody solution or it's a self-custody where in a self-custody manner, they can really offload all of this regulatory burden and operate globally and let the users hold any assets they want in a compliant manner. So they're really torn between understanding what kind of architecture really consists of a compliant one, a self-custodial one, versus what are the requirements if they're going with a custody solution and where can they operate geographically. So when we come to brands, I think that what we need to kind of hold their hand and carry them through is how our technology is really compliant and can help them solve these issues globally, but how we can also do that while kind of overcoming the user experience side and giving them this native in-brand experience.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is we can take NFTs, integrate it into Web 2 products, at the end of the day. That's the a digital collectible or a gateway into those businesses? I mean, what are the use cases you're asking? No, I mean, what is the challenge? How do you integrate Web3 solutions into Web 2 company, with brands? How do you take it to the next level?
Okay, the microphone is set enough. So I'd say primarily what we've been seeing is that brands when they're tapping into it, is usually with consumer-facing experiences. So it's either more on the marketing side to really kind of leverage the hype or kind of appeal to a different segment of audience, or they really want to implement something with utility or something with a true use case, which comes with the ticketing, the loyalty, the gamification ability, and kind of the metaverse, which we'll get into. Basically being able to foster a new community and leverage the benefits that Web3 gives into their consumer engagement tools.
Okay, fair enough. And Osnat, so have we been focused on a Web3 future? Is it time we go back to classic business case, taking identify where NFTs can drive real impact today? At the end of the day.
So if the question is, have we been focusing on scenarios which are too futuristic, I think it's a resounding yes. I think we can all agree we've kind of been a bit too optimistic for a while, and it's nice to be optimistic, but at the end of the day, the Web3 space became an enclosed bubble where companies kind of sold solutions to each other. And I think this panel is a good representation of people who took a different direction. And we have no other choice. So the way recession works generally is that if in the usual case scenario, companies invest in two types of innovation. One is the digitalization, where you use new tech to improve existing business, versus business model innovation, where you create completely new business opportunities, new business verticals. When it comes to recession, things close down and you kind of stick with what you know. So the biggest opportunities we have today, as the next, I would say, 2 years, have to circle around enhancing existing business cases with elements from Web3. So if you have a 3-year runway as a business, good for you. You can build very futuristic things, but most of us aren't there. And we are focusing on things that can be meaningful today. So to give you some perspective, the regular business case world and the regular execs that somewhere along the food chain you're selling to. So if you're selling to businesses, as we all are, you're selling to a person who might not be the budget holder. Somewhere above that person, there's a person who knows nothing about this space, who has a KPI he's accountable to, which has nothing to do with the tech, and he needs to sell more, spend less, improve net promoter score, reduce liabilities and risk, and other problems that can be interpreted in 50 different ways. So it's not just our job to show we're doing this Web3 thing better than some other Web3 company. We need to mean something real to the business. So this has been my challenge as well, kind of in Alsomine, to try to figure out how there are a lot of amazing business cases for Web3 and NFT specifically. Ticketing is an amazing business case. I can put billions down mathematically to a business case and explain why it reduces fraud, it reduces a lot of issues around identification and so on. And I don't need to tell you the Taylor Swift story that happened earlier this year that went all the way down, up to to the parliament in the States, to the Senate. Well, all they needed to do is the NFT, the loyalty club for Taylor Swift, and they would have avoided the whole fiasco, which they have been doing now. So, you know, the back end for Ticketmaster in the US has been switched over to NFTs, and you will never know when you buy the ticket. You just won't feel it, and as you shouldn't. But there are other major business cases which really hurt businesses today and can be vastly improved by NFTs. So anything that is ingrained digital, like gift cards and coupons and tickets and transactions and identifications, all of these exist across the board. And if you try to reduce the amount of work the business needs to do to use those things, you can really succeed in Web 2 with Web 3 business. So I think this is gonna like separate the survivors during this period from the rest of the group, in my personal view, and I'm really hoping we'll see all of you here next year telling us how you've done this too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's an excellent point. There's a lot of conversation about infrastructure. There's a lot of conversation about mass adoption and how it's going to take over and change and evolution and centralization. And there's a lot of different variables. There are very hard challenges to overcome, like decentralization, like real decentralization. It's hard. It's very hard to prove that you're fully decentralized and you're detached from the server, and you know the community is taking care of everything. Let's do like a think piece question. So, having said that, why do users in this day and age use centralized exchanges and not peer-to-peer trading as it should be? Not just trading of money, but trading of information, trading of power. So everything is done through centralized exchanges and centralized bodies. So the question is this: do you think the next platform that we're going to work with is going to be fully centralized, but all the peer-to-peer interactions can be decentralized? You understand the question? So it's a good...
Yeah, I think I do. When I was starting in crypto, I was like a maximalist. I was always talking about how decentralization is like top priority. And I advocated for that, obviously, with privacy and ownership. But I think that, you know, I kind of matured and understood that in order for us to really achieve mass adoption, we have to understand that those that are coming from Web 2, and I can call them retail, or however, the whole world's population will probably not get onboarded into Web3 or cryptocurrency or blockchain technology without it being embedded within their experience and not the main epitome of their experience. So when we're looking at centralized exchanges, for example, when we're talking about transactions like doing it with Binance, Kraken, Bitstamp, Coinbase, all other exchanges, they have a far better experience today than decentralized exchanges do. And I think it will take not only more time for the user experience and those decentralized exchanges to be better, but also in terms of the underlying technology that supports, instant transactions. Exactly when I'm talking about gaming will never be 100% decentralized, so to speak, or 100% on-chain, because you need to supply a specific experience to the user then that will make him prefer or choose you over his alternatives that are Web 2 oriented only. And obviously a lot of companies will never be onboarded into Web 3. They have their executive team that is very against Web 3, and there are some that are advocating towards Web 3, and we see them going through that route. But I think that in general, we will never see complete decentralization. I think those that are advocating towards complete decentralization will never reach mass adoption from Web 2 audience.
I'll just add to that. I agree completely. I think that there's definitely going to be some elements that forever will remain centralized. And one of them, which I think is important to remember, that as long as we want to enable some sort of fiat payments and on-ramp, will always be a centralized component. You're relying on PSPs, you're relying on other entities that are centralized in their nature. And this is not something that's going to disappear anytime soon. So as long as you're implementing any sort of fiat feature, you're still centralized.
Well, I think when you look at centralized, non-centralized, consumers don't care. They don't know enough. They trust someone to take care of them. So the only way to get people to give up power, and I think gaming is a great example, because the inherent, it reminds me really, if you haven't watched the Spotify story on Netflix, you really should. It's a great metaphor for our space. So, Spotify weren't just fighting the record companies. They were fighting to free Pirate Bay, moving people to pay from getting free music. So the things that will help us win is, I think, twofold. One is absolutely user experience. But when I say user experience, the corporate user is also a user. Okay, so I think the consumer user and the corporate user experience is king, and people pay for experience. People pay a lot of good money for experience, and corporate pay for a good experience plus risk aversion. And the other one is the business model. You need to make people have it worth their while, and corporates have it worth their while to make the change. As long as it's not worth their while financially or risk-wise or customer satisfaction, why would they? So the trick here is to find a win-win scenario where the change is actually beneficial to everyone involved and not just to the consumers, because the businesses don't really prioritize consumers yet.
Thank you. I think we can wrap it up. I think we answered a lot of honest and open questions about our industry. Thank you guys for listening in. Visit World's Busters. Please, thank you for attending. And, thank you for all the wonderful panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. You're welcome to join us in happy hour in the networking area. Thank you, everyone, for the speakers and the moderators. Thank you.